And we begin this Sunday morning with remembering the life and legacy of George Herbert Walker Bush. The war hero and 41st President of the United States died on Friday night at the age of 94. He is being remembered as a man of uncommon decency and kindness across the political spectrum this weekend. A loving father and husband who devoted his life to his family and country. Beginning tomorrow, the nation will get to say their final farewells to the former president when he lie in state in the U.S. Capitol before he is laid to rest back home in Texas later this week. Joining me right now in an exclusive interview to share his memories of the late president is Dan Quayle, former vice president under George H.W. Bush. Mr. Vice President, thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Good morning.
My condolences to you and his family. Share with us what you remember of President H.W.
Well, you said it all in the introduction. I mean, George Bush was just absolutely the best. He was a great individual, in my opinion, a great president. He loved his family. He loved his work. He loved the country. And it was such an honor for me to work with him every single day that he was president, I was vice president for the American people. And a lot of folks, you know, they ask me, well, what's the legacy? I said, you know, that's a tough question. Historians will sort that out. But in my view, his legacy, Maria, was accomplishments. He got things done. When he left office, the economy was growing at 5–6%. You know, the Berlin Wall came down. Eastern and Central Europe freed from the yoke of communism. Apartheid in South Africa was eliminated. Success in putting Saddam Hussein back into Iraq. Noriega apprehended. So many things in a short period of time, and the domestic front as well. So accomplishments. He did so much in 4 years. He
really did. He left the country in a better place than when he arrived. And when he first chose you as his running mate, you wrote an op-ed in the Journal. George Bush, Be Prepared and Be Loyal was the title of that. You talked about after yourself and the president were inaugurated on January 20th, 1989, and he discussed Ronald Reagan a bit to you. As Ronald Reagan left, why did you choose those words, be prepared and loyal? He said that to you.
He did. We talked about, you know, what the Quayle model would be. I said, look, I very much like the Bush model. And he says, no, you have your own model. You'll do your thing. It'll be different than mine. I was very, very fortunate to not only work with him as a great individual, but he had been vice president for 8 years. And he knew the good things about being vice president and the not so good things about being vice president. So that was a blessing from my perspective. But what he said to me on the steps of the Capitol as we said goodbye to Ronald Reagan and Nancy Reagan, he turned to me and in sort of his, you know, low voice, he says, that man was very good to me. And I can say that today, that man, George Bush, was very good to me.
Oh, how wonderful. And you were just 41 years old when you first were in the job, but you had been in Congress for a long time, since you were 29, so you had a great perspective in terms of the congressional dealings. How did President Bush deal with the Congress in terms of the different factions and determinations on each sides of the aisle?
Well, it's interesting because we had a Democrat Congress. So, you know, we had to deal with Speaker Foley. We had to deal with Majority Leader George Mitchell. So we had to reach across the aisle to get support for what we wanted to do. And look at what we did. You know, we got budgets passed, clean air, comprehensive clean air legislation, disabilities. And then the resolution from the Congress, and particularly in the Senate, the House was easy to go and take Saddam Hussein out of Kuwait and put him back into Iraq, because we had to pick up 10 Democrats in the United States Senate to support us to get a majority vote. And we had the Majority Leader, George Mitchell, was opposed to us. We had the Chairman of the Senate Armed Services, Sam Nunn, was opposed to us. We had a lot of very important people in the Senate that were opposed to us on this resolution. And so we had to work hard to get Democrats to support us. And, you know, sometimes divided government works. It clearly worked in our administration, and you can get things done if you reach across the aisle and work hard.
And even on a personal level, he did things without theatrics or drama. President Bush died nearly 7.5 months after his wife of 73 years, Barbara Bush, passed. Not long after his mother's passing, I had the opportunity to talk with President George W. Bush and former First Lady Laura Bush about the bond between the elder Bush couple. Watch this.
I love the fact that she was married to your father for 73 years.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, he was by her side, by the way, when she passed.
He said that.
Which is sweet, yeah.
And we have a love letter that he wrote to her that we have been talking about this morning from World War II in 1943, penned by your father, and it's going viral this morning, obviously. And it says, it reads in part, "This may sound melodramatic, but if it does, it is only my inadequacy to say what I mean. Bar, you have made my life full of everything I could ever dream of. My complete happiness should be a token of my love for you."
Yeah.
Were they just sort of just like a love affair all the time? I mean, in
yeah, it
person?
seemed that way, you know.
They really were.
Yeah.
Yeah, that
It was
was
a great example.
They were best friends, weren't they, Mr. Vice President? Did you see that as well?
Yeah, so actually one of the last times that I saw the president and Barbara together was 2 years ago up at Kennebunkport. I used to go up there every summer and have a lunch with them. And they serve a great lobster, and they have a little white wine. It's a wonderful lunch, just the three of us. And the last time I was there, you know, Barbara was carrying on the conversation. The president would chime in when he wanted to. But you could just see the love and the sparkle, even though he was, you know, having some physical difficulties. She was fabulous. He was great. I mean, what a couple.
Yeah. And you know, it's incredible to mention the economy and the growth that we saw, almost 6%, more than 6% at one point during his presidency, and yet it was only one term. Yes,
that was unfortunate. You know, a lot of, you know, blame to go around. I'll take my fair share. But Ross Perot did get 19% of the vote.
Right.
There was a perception that the economy wasn't doing as well as it should, but yet it was growing at 6% when we left office. You also had a little bit of perhaps Republican fatigue. You know, we'd been in power for 12 years. The American people like change. It was a hard-fought campaign. By looking back on it, I think we could have won 3 or 4 days before the election. I think we could have won 3 or 4 days after the election. But guess what? You have to win on Election Day, and therefore I was a fairly young, retired former vice president of the United States.
President Trump yesterday in Argentina said that he will be, after he comes home, which now he is home, he's sending Air Force One back to pick up the casket and then bring George H.W. back to Texas at the end of really the celebrations this week of his life. Let me get your sense of what's happening today, because you say that people wanted change. They certainly did vote for change in 2016 with Donald Trump. Here we are, game on into 2020 with the Democrats lining up for their candidate. How do you see the state of play, if you will, today?
Well, today I think that President Trump would probably be the favorite, but there are 3 unknowns, Maria, 3. One, we don't know who the Democrats are going to put up. Will they put up Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren type person? We'll have to wait and see. 2, I don't know what the state of the economy will be in 2020. It's good now. We're a long way away. Nobody can really predict what it's going to be in 2020, and the economy is obviously key. President Trump ran on that, bringing jobs back to America, increasing wages for the workers. It's all good right now. What's it going to be in 2020? Then the third unknown is the Mueller investigation and the investigation in the Southern District of New York. We just don't know. So those are 3 unknowns that you will be examining, and others will, to determine who the president will be in 2020.
Yeah, you make a really good point, particularly on the economy, because a lot of people now are predicting that things will slow quite considerably, perhaps even tinker with the recession come 2020. And that's obviously when people are going to be going out to vote.
Well, if the economy slips, then there'll be a real challenge for President Trump. The one thing, and his strategists know this, that he does have to expand the base. Now, how he goes about that, we'll have to wait and see. But the base is firm, it's strong, it's solid, but it has to be expanded, in my opinion, for him to be successful.
Yeah. But
we don't know about the economy, and the economy is always important. But Obama proved to us that you could not have a good economy and still be successful. When he ran in 12, the economy, unemployment was what, 9%?
That's right. Yeah.
9%, and he got reelected. So, we'll have to wait and see. Every election is different.
Really important points that you make. Mr. Vice President, it's a pleasure to see you and have you on the program. Thanks so much.
Thank you.